Dogman at dawn. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I recently had to bury a great old friend of mine, and it was very hard. During the mourning period, we were talking about our lost buddy, who I'm gonna call Trace for personal reasons. Lots of old memories we had nearly forgotten came flooding out of all of us, and one of the stories that I had almost forgotten involved the time that Trace and I saw a big old upright walking dogman. Back in those days, and I guess we're talking decades back by now, Trace was good friends with a family that lived off the shore of Tree Lake near Peterson Park in Wisconsin. It's located just across Route 49 from the Upper Little Wolf State Natural Area. I don't know if that's significant to this story, but it sure seems like it would be, doesn't it? We visited the family Trace was friends with, and he wanted us to stay for a few more days. The family said we'd be welcome to come for dinner, but they already had in-laws over and there were no beds for us to sleep in. The homeowner came up with an idea that we could use their camping equipment and sleep out in the backyard, which is the kind of idea that you always knew Trace was gonna jump at. Of course, once we had the tent and the sleeping bags in our possession, we packed them up into backpacks and took off for the woods surrounding Tree Lake. I think we went north, but don't quote me on that. We only walked maybe 15 minutes into the woods, and we knew the way back, but I'm not really sure which direction we walked in. I think we brought ourselves closer to the Upper Little Wolf Natural Area, and maybe that's why we saw that creature that sure did look an awful lot like some kind of a giant mutant wolf. Now, you may not want to use this story because it does not present the Dogman as some kind of a boogie monster. That does not mean that it was not terrifying to briefly be in his presence. I felt like I was gonna die when that happened. I honestly did. I only had that feeling one other time in my life, and that was about 10 years later, when a very nervous, sweaty guy held a .45 on me and demanded I go to an ATM and give him as much cash as the machine would allow me to take out. I only saw the Dogman from I guess 40 feet away, but it was just as scary as having a pistol held to your back. Since I experienced both, I believe I am qualified to make that statement and judgment. I hope some of that intense fear can translate into my retelling of what happened to me and Trace on that particular morning. When I tell people in person, I can't help but get emotional about it, and I think that helps people understand how traumatic this was. I once tried to write it down for a friend's article compiling strange occurrences in Wisconsin, but he rejected it as not scary enough. When you see a dogman about half the distance away from you as home plate is from first base, that's automatically scary. How long would it take you to run 45 feet? Well, it would take the Dogman less time than that, believe me. Having a Dogman 45 feet away is exactly as deadly and dangerous as having a knife held to your throat. In either case, you can be cut down about as easily in approximately the same time. Sometimes when I tell this story in person, I'll go and stand 45 feet away so they get the idea, and then I'll run back to them in a couple of seconds, giving them a gut-level comprehension of the danger that Trace and I found ourselves in. And now that I've established all that, I'm going to actually tell you what happened, in the order that it happened. So it was a hot night, and we were both having trouble sleeping, and just a little bit before dawn, we both gave up and went for a walk down to the lake to cool off. The sun was only just beginning to show some signs that I was thinking about climbing back up in the sky. The breeze was nice, and as tired as I was, it still felt completely peaceful and beautiful. That was the last moment of the first part of my adulthood. My personality and my life was about to be changed a lot in the next few moments. Trace had said we should strip to our underpants and take a swim to cool off. I said that was too dangerous because one of the neighbors might see us. See us taking a 3-minute swim before the sun is up after a hot night? Trace asked. Is that a felony in Wisconsin? We bickered about it, with him daring me to show him one single person looking out at the lake from their home at that time of the morning. It was true, I couldn't see anybody, and it was more likely that everyone was still sleeping, but I was shy, and I don't ever want to get arrested while I'm only wearing underpants. It's just a weird fear of mine. Besides, there were all these green plants growing in the water. I don't know what that was or if it was safe to swim out in that stuff. Maybe it was seaweed, although this was a lake, not the sea. I really don't know much about nature. Anyway, Trace nudged me and pointed out toward the water, where there was some kind of a surface disturbance, some way out. Trace started talking in his Boris Karloff accent, saying there was a monster under those waves. I got genuinely chilled when he said that, even though I knew he was joking. It didn't make sense to see bubbles coming up like that. What under the surface of Tree Lake breathed air? So this creature just walked up out of the water, like he was coming home from work or something. It wasn't the creature from the Black Lagoon, but the silhouette wasn't all that different either. It looked like an upright standing and walking man, covered in seaweed, which fell off of him as he walked towards shore. This wasn't a gill man, though. This wasn't a fish with legs. It was covered in shaggy, darkly colored, dripping wet fur, which appeared shiny black in the limited light. It may have been dark brown or gray, but it was very wet, and looked as black as a black bear. The fur was a lot longer than that of a black bear, though, and the skin underneath was not pale and peachy like the skin of black bears that I've seen. This creature was more uniformly dark all over, at least when wet and in that pre-dawn light. It had a snout at least as long as a bear's, probably longer, and the teeth looked just crazy. I don't just mean they were long. I mean, they were insane. All over the place, pointing in different directions. It looked to me that any animal unlucky enough to get snagged by those teeth was going to find it nearly impossible to retract themselves or their arm or their leg from that mouth. The jaws and teeth seemed designed to snag you, then only provide one direction to go, which was down into the creature's belly. It had very long dog ears, but dog ears is what they were. You could tell what it was thinking by watching the ears, same as you often can with your pet dog. It was so much like a dog that it must have been what people call Dogman. I started to get up off the fallen tree we were sitting on to run away, but Trace pushed my shoulder back down with some force. He gave me an angry glance, and I knew I'd better sit still and be quiet. Trace was never serious until he was, and I knew better than to fight with him about it when he felt strongly about something. And Trace didn't want to do anything to attract the creature's attention if it could be avoided. So the dogman shook a lot of water off of himself in an upright version of that way that your pet Fido will shake the water off of him when you try to give him a doggy bath. Some of the water made it to only a few feet in front of us in the dirt. There were little bits of seaweed everywhere. The dogman gave one of his ears a good scratching. Then he started to walk toward the trees between two family homes when it noticed us for the first time and completely stopped moving to stare at us. I froze as well, not wanting to even breathe. At first, Trace sat there on the log with me, but after a moment, he sort of nodded with his head and then sort of casually saluted the dogman with 2 fingers, like a lazy salute between 2 old friends. The dogman kept staring at us, and I remained frozen. Then, it sort of seemed to nod back at Trace, and then the dogman resumed walking into the trees beyond as the sun started to come up in greater earnest. He was walking in the direction that we had camped in, and we were quite happy to let him go there. I don't think we went back to fetch the camping equipment till after noon that day, and that night we went back to our host's original offer and slept out in his backyard. I think that story kind of explains why so many people mourned the loss of Trace. How many people see the Dogman and then nod? And then how many of those get a nod back from the Dogman? If Trace hadn't been there, I probably would have taken off running away from that beast man, and the Dogman could have chased me down in seconds. Trace probably saved my life. I still feel like I owe him, and it's too late to pay him back. Sometimes people ask me if the Dogman I saw was an amphibian, or able to breathe underwater or what. I don't think so. It looked to be a mammal to me. I just think that it had massive lungs in its broad chest, and that it was able to stay underwater for some fairly long time. We may not have noticed it entering the water, just as it didn't notice us at first when it came out. Alternately, we really hadn't been there more than 4 or 5 minutes, so maybe it entered the water just before we arrived. Could a beast like that hold its breath for 5 or 6 minutes? I bet it could, I really do. I think it was holding its breath and hunting under the water. Of course, the fact that it was not carrying any fish in its claws or mouth when it came out might mean that my theory is wrong, but it is only a theory, not proven in any way. Now, Trace and I had no reason to want to repeat this story very much past that week. We did tell his friends that were hosting us in their backyard, and they told us their own Dogman stories, or at least those that they had heard from nearby. They didn't seem surprised at all by what we said, but they didn't seem disturbed by it either. They just seemed to sort of accept that this is what can happen if you live life in Wisconsin. If you get up before the sun, then you're a lot more likely to run into Dogman at dawn. If you search from here to outer space, you'll never find a cooler guy than Ace. Meet the new ace of our channel membership club, the grand and glorious Ace Williams. Ace has joined us on our $10 levels. He gets all our perks. I have to put the links to our secret archived videos, all 25 hours of them, back up in the community posts to make sure Ace can find them easily. We've also got some episodes coming up where the $10 members are going to get to see them far in advance of the general public. Thanks very much for joining, Ace, as we can particularly use all the help we can get right now. Here's hoping this means the second half of July will be better than the first half. And now to fill in the rest of the deets is our international TV spokesmongrel, Henry Lee Dogman. Hank? Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button. Or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that when it cuts off after I think 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.